Welcome to Transfermarkt TV, and we're going to talk about West Ham United today, and particularly David Moyes. There's lots of reports coming out that he might not be offered a new contract. Obviously, last season lifted European trophy with West Ham, but it's all went wrong recently, and they've not actually won a game yet in 2024. Stefan, you wrote a fantastic piece looking at the stats behind West Ham's recent demise. What do you think is going to happen with David Moyes?
I mean, whatever happens at West Ham's anyone's guess. They are one of those clubs that are kind of a rule unto themselves, especially when it comes to managers, head coaches, and players that they sign. But I decided to kind of take a look at Moyes' record in this stint, because obviously he had a short stint beforehand as West Ham manager. And, I must admit, there's very little to suggest from the numbers that he shouldn't be kept on as West Ham manager beyond this season. I'm just going to run through some numbers now, and obviously West Ham fans can let us know what they think in the comments below. But just to kind of kick things off, his record or his points per game average since returning to West Ham is 1.57, which is higher than Manuel Pellegrini's 1.3, Slaven Bilic's 1.19, Sam Allardyce's 1.43, and even Avram Grant's 1.39. That's in all competitions. If you want to open it up to just Premier League games, which I have done, going all the way back to Alan Pardew, Moyes is still top. He's averaging 1.38 points per game. Again, second stint at West Ham, not including his first stint. 1.38, as I said. Again, still above Pellegrini, 1.25, Bilic 1.33, Allardyce 1.17, Grant 0.89, Zola 1.1, Alan Kirbishley 1.32, and Pardew 1.25. There's some names from the past for you there. So, whichever way you want to kind of chop it up, he is averaging more points per game than any West Ham manager that's really come before him in the modern era. So, technically and on paper, he is the best manager West Ham have had in the modern Premier League era, if you will. At least going back to, 2003, was when Pardew was in charge. When you then kind of look at how he compares to his contemporaries in the Premier League, it gets a little more interesting. So what I did was I went and found, every Premier League manager from when Moyes took on his job here, which was in, December 2019. I filtered out all the head coaches who have been in charge for less than 50 league games. And I went to see who had the highest average points per game. And, to no great surprise, Guardiola's top. Then it's Klopp, Tuchel, Arteta, Conte, Ten Hag, Solskjaer, Mourinho, Eddie Howe, De Zerbi, Ancelotti, and then Moyes is 12th. Now, looking at that graph, you would probably think, okay, well, if Moyes is 12th, that maybe suggests that West Ham can do better. But if you actually look at that list of names, there's only 3 names there from people who weren't coaching top 4 sides. You could probably rule out Eddie Howe as well, since obviously he came in with Newcastle, where at least had the financial muscle of a top 4 side or a top 6 side. But then Ancelotti at Everton and De Zerbi at Brighton are probably the most interesting ones. And I think that's maybe where, the moans and groans from West Ham fans, or indeed the board about Mourinho, kind of start and end, because I think you could probably make an argument that Moyes is doing a decent job at West Ham, but the problem is that he's obviously being compared to some of these other clubs, De Zerbi at Brighton, Frank at Brentford, guys like that who are probably overperforming above their station, or where the club would be in the hierarchy of English football. So one last stat I actually looked at as well, that's maybe worth mentioning as well, is that I looked at how much West Ham have spent since David Moyes came in, and they're actually sitting 8th amongst all Premier League clubs for total net spend. To no great surprise, Chelsea are top, Man United, Arsenal, Tottenham, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Man City 7th, interestingly enough, and then it's West Ham with Liverpool and Nottingham Forest behind them. So in terms of money spent, they're 8th, which is exactly where they are on the league table right now. In terms of, how David Moyes compares to West Ham managers of last couple of years, he's doing better. But there are kind of some mitigating factors, your likes of De Zerbi, I guess Ancelotti at Everton as well, that maybe give West Ham fans the kind of hope or desire that if they just manage to snap up a young new head coach, they might be able to take them above where they are right now in the league table.
Yeah, it's fascinating you mentioned the net spend and the kind of correlation between their league positions. That's often the case in football. The clubs generally sit where their spending power lies. Ben, do you think David Moyes is perhaps kind of a victim of his own success last season? Winning that Conference League trophy and kind of the runs they've had in Europe are obviously been a big part of the last couple of seasons. They're still in European competition this season. Do you think that's maybe the case, that expectations have been raised beyond what should really be realistic?
I think definitely it's the case. I think they've overachieved massively. I mean, West Ham have been playing in Europe fourth consecutive season this year. If you told any West Ham fan before that they were going to be in Europe for the next 4 seasons, and not only that, they were going to win the Europa Conference League, they would have bitten your hand off. So they've done to win the Europa Conference League with that team is an incredible achievement, and to be competing in the upper echelons of the Premier League table consistently. I think the 2 issues that West Ham fans have with David Moyes, one is the style of play. I think he's one of the few managers in the Premier League now that is more comfortable having less possession. He doesn't really want his team to have the ball. Most teams now that are in that area of the Premier League, when they're fighting for Europe, even you look at, like you brought up Brighton, they want to have the ball, they want to dominate and be on the front foot. That's not the case at West Ham. I think the other issue, I know West Ham supporters were very disappointed in the League Cup. They played Liverpool in the quarterfinals away, and he rested, I think, 8 players, made a number of changes, which West Ham fans weren't really happy about. And I sort of understand why. West Ham were 8th or 9th in the table. So, yes, they might get into Europe again, but a cup run surely is a priority, especially when you get to that stage and you've already knocked out the likes of Arsenal. So I think that also is where some of the murmurs come from. But I think, like you say, it's a case of overachievement, being a little bit reactionary, forgetting where the club was when David Moyes came in. He's done a fantastic job. Okay, the football's not going to be amazing, and I understand once you spend more money, the hopes and expectations go up, and you do expect and want more. But I think David Moyes has done an excellent job at West Ham, and I think some of his achievements should be remembered a little bit more.
They do have some very exciting players. I know one criticism has been that the style of football isn't, perhaps the most attractive and the most modern style of play, but the likes of Kudus, Paqueta, Bowen, they've got some very good attacking players at their disposal. I always ask you to predict the future here, Steph, which is almost impossible to do, but what do you think West Ham will do in the summer? Do you think they will go for a younger, more continental style of coach who can maybe change the style of play and get a better product on the pitch?
I mean, that's kind of maybe what West Ham fans are potentially dreaming of right now. I suspect that the reports we're seeing right now are also just a reaction to the recent run of form, and it's maybe some of the club kind of conveniently leaking some stories to the media that they are also concerned about David Moyes' situation. I think in reality they'll probably wait and see what happens towards now the end of the season. Considering their dreadful start to 2024, the law of averages would simply suggest that they will turn it around. They will kind of, revert back to the mean, start picking up points again, and probably finish in that kind of top 8, top 6 spot, which, as Ben's pointed out, would still be a remarkable achievement for West Ham. But, at the end of the day, football fans are fickle. They always want what's next. And, the history of the sport suggests that you can very rarely reason with a football fan when they are kind of on the crest of a wave and say, well, just remember what it was like the year before last. So I think at the end of the day, it will come down to public opinion, which itself will probably come down to how West Ham do between now and the end of the season. But if I had to guess, I would say that Moyes will turn it around. They'll start picking up points again. They'll finish in a pretty respectable league position. And while some fans will still be kind of pining for the De Zerbis or the Thomas Franks of this world, I think the club will probably be quite happy sticking with them next season.
There we go. Some fantastic analysis on West Ham. If you are a supporter of the Hammers, let us know in the comments. What will you do in the summer? Would you keep Moyes into next season, or would you look to freshen things up? And also you can read Stefan's article on our website. Cheers.